Welcome to episode 466 of the DFO Rundown, always brought to you by Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up by 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. It must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. That's the only saving grace if you're a Minnesota Wild fan. If you'd bet on that game and Bet365, you're up 3-0, you got paid. And unfortunately, you saw your team, for the first time in franchise history, lose a playoff game when you led 3 or more goals. So that's unfortunate. I'm Jason Greger. We welcome in Mike Rupp to the show. Rupper, how you doing?
I'm good, Gregs. I'm good. It's dwindling down here. You know, we got no games tonight. So these are I know they're good. They're good games, but we're in like playoff mode and you just want to kind of keep it rolling. At least I do, but we'll get a night to recalibrate here tonight. But yeah, moving on here to the conference finals.
Yes, so we'll have one game for sure on Saturday, Montreal and Buffalo, as Carolina is patiently waiting to see who they'll play. I'm going to guess the conference finals are going to start Tuesday and Wednesday, most likely. I would think you can have, because you can just set that up and plan for it already. Because if they go to Game 7, that'll be Monday, and then you could play in Carolina on Wednesday, and you could have. Now I haven't looked at arena availability, but you could have Vegas and Colorado. Vegas, of course, now is up 4-2. That series is over and they're in. So we'll see. Now, before we get to the hockey, though, I've noticed something recently. I'm going to get Pat Puff to come on the show earlier here because both of you guys have much thicker beards. And I have a thick in the front. I'm more of a goatee, but I don't get the side beards. But I've noticed Rupper's kind of like his beard. It's like the new trend I've noticed. You don't go all the way up to the sideburns anymore. Like yours, you go like below your ear, and Patty's wears his beard all the way to the top at the top ear, which was kind of the trend for a long time, Rupper. So I'm curious, like what's with the new kind of like no sideburn, shorter beard going to the bottom? It just kind of goes to your jawline at the top, and I've noticed that a little bit. Is that like the new trend?
No, so I'll give you full transparency on mine, and Pat, you can answer yours. I obviously don't have a head of hair to link the beard up to, so that's kind of first and foremost. But I touch up my beard with some dye. I never like to go. Like completely. I never want to look like just straight lines and go jet black or anything like that. But I'll touch it up, and I mean, I'm good with grays being in there. But here's the deal. It's more out of like laziness because the days if I go like 5 days without touching it up, you could see along the sides, you get like, I get my hair coming in, it's gray on the border. So the easiest thing for me to do is just use the razor blade and just cut that down, cut it out. So what ends up happening is the lines will start, I can turn my head this way. I'll start up here, but then you'll get grays there. So I chop it down, it gets lower. And then even this part here starts going lower, because it used to be up higher there too. So it's just a fact of me just cutting out the grays, and it lowers everything a little bit until I start dyeing it again. So that's my way of doing it.
But I've noticed lots of guys.
Is that a trend? I didn't even notice that.
Yes. Well, I just noticed it because I'm like, because dude, I'm with you. Like I got the grays coming in sometimes, and so usually I get it right here in the front, so I'll touch it up a little bit. And
I like the grays, but when you get it around the sides and you have some other hair in your beard that's darker, now it looks like it's like outlined. It's like someone took a white crayon and outlined my face. So I keep cutting it down a little bit more, and then the sideburns come down lower, the beard line comes down lower. That's where I'm at. Pat, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff.
Well, no, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of thought process to mine. I'm pretty much just throw it on a 9 and go for it. So I'm going to be curious to check the comments now because maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe
well, no, you've got a whole head of hair though, so I get why the connector. It looks like neither. Curious in the difference of it because I think being more in the hairstyle of Rupper, like I was debating on. I'm like, because I even talked to my wife. I said I've noticed Rupper goes to the bottom of the ears, not the top. And I'm with you. I have more grays higher than I have lower. So I'm like, you know what? It's less work. I might have to do it. I might just try it. I just tried to see.
Hey, yeah. I mean, it eventually will get to the point where I go too low and then I'll have to like just start growing it back up. So it's a kind of pain in the ass, to be honest with
you. Yeah. See, I was debating because I don't have it as thick on the sides as you two. Mine's pretty thick in the front, but I thought about going to, I've never really worn a goatee though. So I'm debating. I know like goatee, if you have a shaved head and a goatee, everybody just thinks you're a biker. Like, I know it's a bad stereotype, but it's kind of what everybody thinks. And like, I have a Kuahara. That's about the extent of my biking. So it's a nice, sick pedal bike. It's lime green, but it's unreal. It's a collector's, but I'm not a motorbike guy. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I'd be curious. Any of our listeners, be sure to hit us up on X or Threads or anywhere to let us know where you are on the. Do you connect the beards, or are you going rupper now on the sides? It was an observation I've noticed the last few weeks, and I kept forgetting to ask. So I want to. Those are the real hard hitting stuff that we talk about here on the rundown sometimes. So, but you watch now, Rupper. It's kind of like a vehicle. When you get a new vehicle, you notice all the other vehicles that are similar to yours, right? Like when I got a Volvo for the first time, I was like, oh, there's another Volvo I never used to recognize. And now I've got a Honda Pilot. And by the way, sick. And Honda's, I will just recommend for taller people, this is the greatest SUV I've ever had. I have more headroom in this vehicle than I've ever had in my life. So shout out Go Auto. Anyway, you'll notice now, Rupper, you'll see the guys who have the lower beards. You're going to watch and be like, you didn't even know that you're up on the trend without even doing it on purpose.
But we got to do that with the bald guys, though, because the guys with hair like Pat.
Oh, even guys with hair. But
they're going to connect it, aren't they?
Guys with hair. Yeah.
So some guys with hair are going like no to short sideburns, gap, then beard.
Yes.
That's weird. Yeah. That's weird for me. Yeah. I don't know, man. All right. That's
you are right. I do think that maybe it's a chrome domers. I have to check closer. Maybe it's more of the chrome domer thing, and I don't mind that. I can say that. I'm in the club. So it's a good thing. So there you go.
Keep an eye on.
Connecting. Hey, some things that haven't connected, the Minnesota Wild, like that. There are tough losses in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And there's ones that you've lost in the playoffs before, Rupper. And I'm sure there's some that just stick with you longer. That's going to be a long offseason for the Wild. You come out, you're playing great. You're up 3-0. You're up 3-1 with 4 minutes left in the game. And then next thing you wake up and it's the old anchor man. That escalated quickly. And suddenly you're out. It's wild.
Yeah, it's it's a tough one, but I don't know what you were thinking watching it or any of the listeners here, but when you had that at the beginning there where you got the goal taken back, but when it was 3-0, all I think is there's too much time. I mean, there's two teams I watch in this league the last number of years where you'll be watching a game and anytime Colorado, or for the most part, Edmonton, is down 2 goals in the first period, if you're of that type that likes to go and see what the line is on that's the time to do it. Like these two teams can come back. There's way too much hockey to be had. You know that they're gonna get on the gas like Colorado did, and then it's just kind of like hang on mode. And when you're in hang on mode, and unfortunately that's what the Wild were in, it's a nasty place to be, and you kind of felt it coming. Now it was just a matter of, are they going to be able to beat out the clock, like you mentioned, with not much time left, being down 2? But I mean, it's tough. It's going to sting when you're in that position there. But I think at the end of the day, as tough as it is, as far as tough of a pill it is to swallow, if you're on Minnesota, you knew the better team won. Now, that should motivate you. And there's some excuses that maybe you had with injuries. But at the end of the day, you still know that there's still another level this team has to get to. So I think Quinn Hughes said it perfectly post-game that if you were to pick someone to lose to, it would be a team like that is just unbelievable. And you feel like is by far, at least on paper or whatever you want to call it, the best team in the league. I think that would give me a little bit ability to lay down and put my head down. But yeah, you're up 3-0 in the playoffs. Like you should be able to bring that one home.
Yeah, like, hey, Jonas Brodin's importance to the team can't be understated. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joel Eriksson Ek, like 2 really good, defensive-minded players. Eriksson Ek can obviously chip in offensively as well, but that Brodin, that's a tough injury, especially against such a deep offensive team. Like Colorado tied the NHL record for most goal scorers in a series, 16. Brett Kulak was the 16th guy, scores the overtime winner. Unreal for him. He's only the 7th player in NHL history to score his first goal with a team that's a series clinching goal. So it's kind of a rare thing to see all that come together. And they're the first team to ever have 16 guys in only a 5-game series. The Blues did it last year in 7 games. The Bruins did it twice in 2019 and 1988. And the Kings did it in 6 games in 93. But the Avs, you're rolling when you have 16 skaters who have scored in a series. And, now we know who they're taking on, Rupper. We saw Vegas last night.
Yeah.
Vegas, Anaheim looked like they kind of ran out of gas here in the last few games of this series. Vegas just really kind of controlled games 5. And really, I thought controlled from start to finish game 6. And it's weird, but Vegas right now, their penalty kill is unbelievable. They've scored 4 shorthanded goals. They've only given up 5. So they're -1 in the playoffs, which is pretty good. But talk about timely goals. Brett Howden's got 3 shorties already. That ties the NHL record.
Yeah, and you and I have kind of spoken on this, I think, a while ago, where they have been taking more penalties than this team generally does take. I mean, they're one of the more disciplined teams in the NHL with taking penalties, period, over the last 3 years. So the fact they're getting this type of quality kills, and then you see this with Howden, the 3 shorties, Mitch Marner, unbelievable on those as well. They got 4, like you mentioned, shorties in the playoffs, which is pretty remarkable up to this point. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice weapon to have. To have that allows you to play with more aggression. You mentioned this, I think, last week about Carolina, just with Carolina's success on their PK. This allows them to play more aggressive. Like, I don't know if I've seen that uptick with Vegas as being egregiously more aggressive, but I have with Carolina, and I think that's due to the penalty killing ability that they have. So we'll see if it serves them well. I will say this: Colorado's power play, which was always a big question mark all season long, down the stretch in the regular season, it was looking pretty good ever since really they got Kadri, and for some reason it just kind of started connecting there. And they've been pretty good in the playoffs. So this is going to be the big test for me, because if you could take a chunk out of Colorado's power play, there's a world where I, of course, think Colorado is the favorite here. I think most people would agree with that. But there's a world here where I could see Vegas giving them something different, giving them something unique. And I'm not going to rule them out in this. I'm going to stick with Vegas, who I picked. I picked Vegas to go to the Cup Finals at the beginning of this, so I'm going to stick with it. But it's funny when you kind of try to handicap the series and you're looking at it, because I can see a world where Vegas can give them a real run here and potentially beat them. But I also can see Colorado just blowing them out of the water, if that makes sense at all. Stylistically, the way they both have to play, who's going to be able to get to it and stick to it? If Vegas can slow things down, play, kind of hang on the pucks a little bit more in the offensive zone, I think they could throw a wrench in this. But it's a battle of like tons of depth. Both these two teams have tons of depth, and Colorado has shown that.
Yeah, Colorado's speed. What do you make of like the coaching change? Now, I want to get to Vegas. Hey, full marks for Vegas. They've deserved to win. They're the better team. And Anaheim, hey, I think the future is bright in Anaheim. They've obviously, they're a young team, but they got a lot of arrows going up. I think they'll want to be better defensively next year. And that's just something that comes with time for, as young players, as a young team. But, lots of arrows for them going up. But I look at Vegas and, you win a series, your coach doesn't speak to the media. You don't open the dressing room to the media. You just wonder why. And like the NHL, I'm sorry, but you got to crack down. Like they should be fined heavily for that. You have business, your big partners that, they travel teams, they're doing broadcast, and you don't have availability to the coach or in the room to the players afterwards. Like I know they sent the 2 guys to the podium. That's fine. But that's just, it's unprofessional. And, and then they're not allowing Bruce Cassidy yet to talk to other teams. And I'm sure they will, because trust me, historically in the NHL, they don't hold back. Eventually, you're not going to hold a guy back and he'll get off their payroll and stuff like that. But it's just, I don't see the need for it. And I'm sure that they're going to, I can tell you right now, this is their little us against the world stuff that I just think is such garbage, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be that. I mean, I can only imagine kind of what happened here. I mean, part of me in the first part is too that I was asking, and I don't know the answers to this, and you and I kind of spoken on it briefly, where I do know certain places, hey, you got that curfew with flights going out. And if they want to get out of here, I could totally see a John Tortorella coming in here and a and a moment where they're feeling great. They just moved on to the conference finals, just saying, let's get the F out of here. You know what I mean? And the boys all, let's get out of here. Just, beeline it. And we're not doing any of that stuff. And so, I could see that, but I don't know what happened. But at the end of the day, this is an organization. They march to the beat of their own drum. We know this. They have since they've come into the league. And I almost think that I feel like they relish being I don't want to say the bad boys, but they kind of, they do their own thing. They don't do the predictable thing. They make those big, bold moves. They have moments. I mean, just go back in time. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. Like, this is how they do business. And they've been very successful. But even the way that some of just the cold-hearted, like, hey, this guy's out of here, we're bringing this guy in, like that's kind of how they've done it. They don't care. And at the end of the day, it's about winning. I kind of envy the way they do it business. Now, does that mean last night, whatever happened there is great for people that's trying to do their job? Absolutely not. Like, that stinks. And so I don't know. I want to learn more about why this happened. But surprised? Like, no, I don't think we should be overly surprised. I think, honestly, I could just see Torts coming in and be like, we're not talking to anybody. Let's get the hell home, blah, 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 blah. And all the boys getting fired up about that.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, considering he's been on long days, not talking to the media. Like, I just, if John, don't be a hypocrite. You work in the media, you should understand what it is. Just respect it. It's embarrassing. That's all. You know what? Just respect people. You want to fire coaches, you want to fire players and trade players. That's all fine. That's part of your organization. Nothing wrong with that. But there's zero reason to be that unprofessional and disrespect people who have done. No one's even written a bad thing about John since he got hired. So why do you have this chip on your shoulder? Like, all they've been doing is winning since he took over. It's just, to me, I'm so tired with and I don't even want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because there's no benefit of the doubt here. Sorry, for me.
So let me ask you this. Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm sure we're going to learn more, and hopefully we do, about it. And are they going to get fined? We'll see if the league does anything about it. But, like, there's the whole part too, where Q kind of did go long last night. So I don't know if that, like, there's a bunch of things that can come in and be like, you know what, we're not doing this. Like, we're getting out of here. So whatever that circumstance is, I mean, they're going to be looking at it from one objective. We're getting home. We're getting our rest. We're not worrying about this. We're moving forward. And I've been inside rooms where it's like, when you have that, and it could be viewed as being distasteful and all those things, I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. But I also think inside the room, to what you said off the top, I don't think you care. You just, like, it's us against the world, and you lean into that. And people might think that's BS, but inside the room, as long as they believe that, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I just don't know if that 15 minutes of rest. And let's be honest, if Vegas wins that game, the series is over. They're not going home to rest. Who's kidding who? We both know that they're going out and they're going to have some fun, as they should be. So I don't, if they would have said, hey, we want to get home to party, at least that'd be more realistic to me. But what do you make of, it's an interesting dynamic of coaching, Rupper. I do think the NHL has a little bit of a league-wide problem of they've inherited this whole mindset that, players tune out coaches. We got to change coaches every few years, and that's just the history of it. But the funny part is, when you look at the teams, and some of them work, like, hey, Vegas is going to say, look, we changed our coach, and we didn't lose the game in the regular season. They go 7-0-1. So I guess they lost one but not in regulation, and now they've won 2 series. So everyone's going to say it worked, and that's true. But so was Bruce Cassidy a bad coach? Because everybody in Edmonton, people are saying, he's going to be great in Edmonton. It's going to be awesome in Edmonton. I'm like, yeah, but he just got let go from a team. And the minute he got let go, the team's playing great. So there's a weird hockey thing going on here, because in a lot of other sports, it's not like this. You go look at pro Europe, like, coaches last forever. Not all of them, but lots of them. And I just think at times now we've bought into this. Players have tuned out the coach after like 2.5 years. And I'm like, what? In a lot of other work industries, you have a good coach and you're successful. You like it. It's continuity. And look at Tampa, John Cooper, longest running coach in the NHL. Do you know who has the most playoff wins since he took over any team? Tampa Bay. Then you go to Jared Bednar, second longest tenured coach in the NHL. And by the way, he won 22 games his first season in 2017, because he got to take over when Patrick Waugh resigned in late August. And
Yeah.
They had like a 2-week search. Since he's taken over, they had one bad year. They've been consistent. And if they make it to the Cup final, they'll be number one in wins from the time he took over. Then you fast forward 2 years, Rod Brindamore. Guess what? Carolina, if they get to the Cup, it's going to be them in Colorado, 1 or 2 in the time he took over. So we can talk about how it works for some, but some of these franchises that have longer running success are the ones with continuity. And Tampa Bay, because everyone says, yeah, but John Cooper was great. Well, first year he made the playoffs, lost in the first round. Second year he made the final. Third year they lost in the conference final. Fourth year, Rupper, they missed the playoffs. So you went from Cup to quarter conference final to no playoffs. Most organizations, we got to fire the coach. They didn't. Fifth year, third round of the playoffs. Sixth year, best regular season ever at that point, got swept in the first round. So in 3 of his first 6 years, he didn't get out of the first round, didn't make the playoffs once, and they didn't fire him. Teams don't, everybody else just seems to want to rush to fire. Like, look at Rod Brindamore. Most teams can't win a third round series, Rupper. Can barely win a game in the third round. We got to fire the coach. And they haven't. And I think there's a lesson here that some teams are way too trigger happy when it comes to axing the coach.
Yeah, I think that is a problem in hockey where you don't have you don't have this continuity. You don't have, I mean, at the end of the day, you need some consistency. You need to have a baseline of this is who we are. And when you do that, and here's the other part too, when you have franchises that do it, and I'm not talking about Vegas necessarily in this situation. When you have franchises they do that so quickly, as much as players feel like, hey, we let this guy down, or in some situations you hear guys saying, hey, you know what, that's on us. Like, he didn't deserve this, but all that is true. But at the same time, you almost become numb to it, where when things are bad, you're like, when are we going to make a change? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of pushes the envelope and kind of pushes the blame. And that's a really bad place to be as a franchise, because, players got to take that on. They're the ones out there executing. So, or not. And so, I don't know. I think that in situations, though, let's just go back to Vegas. This is a year where that division was a big question mark of who's real, who's not, who's good, who isn't. It's a very strange year in the NHL. I mean, it just is. The only thing we knew in the NHL this year is that the top 3 in the Central were really good hockey teams. After that, the East was an absolute disaster. Like, when I say disaster, it's just as far as who is who and who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to go on a run, who's a contender. Now, I think some of that still stands true because we're still trying to figure that out in the playoffs. So I think from the standpoint of Vegas, they are built to win. They are always built to win now. They get after the trade deadline and they look like trash. They can't do anything. So I don't even know at the end of the day. I'm not inside that room. Did they tune out Bruce Cassidy? I have no idea. I have heard in the past, which everybody has kind of heard, is that he's a very good coach in this 3-year window. After that, it seems like there has been some discourse after that. Now, did that happen? I have no idea. But I think that this franchise looked at it as, this is our only move right now. This is our only move right now that we could do to shake things up going into the playoffs. So, yeah, I think Bruce Cassidy is a fantastic coach. He will land somewhere else here and be very motivated, because you saw his interview when he was on the TNT broadcast the first night of these playoffs, where he's just like, hey, it's tough. You got, 8 games left or whatever it was in the regular season, and you want to see this thing through, and you believe in this team, and you're not allowed to do that. So, I don't know what I subscribe to, but I will say there's way too much coaching movement in this league. There is way too much of it. And you sit there and you look around. I mean, that number that we saw with even Nuge, how many head coaches he's had? Are you kidding me right now? Was it 10 and 14 years? Is that what that number is? I mean, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's 15 years. And this will be his, I guess it would be his 10th, because it's starting his 16th season. And, now 2 of those guys are like interim coaches, but yes, it's a problem. Connor McDavid is now entering his 6th head coach, and this is starting his 12th season. And so my question to you is, Kris Knoblauch, worst kept secret in the NHL after earlier in the week they talked to Bruce Cassidy. So you knew he was a dead man walking. They make it official on Thursday. What did you make of the whole handling of the Knoblauch situation, and what seems like the inevitable Bruce Cassidy hire?
So I didn't know how to speak on this week, and it's not to discredit any of the newsbreakers. I'm not doing that at all. But when it came out, it's like, all right, well, did this happen? Or are we speaking on we've gotten any confirmation? Like I don't believe that we.
Yeah, Bruce Cassidy did an interview on Thursday where he said, "I'm hoping to get permission to talk to teams soon."
Okay, because I didn't see it, and you would be closer to that than me. I did not see or hear anybody ask Stan Bowman about that in his presser yesterday.
He was asked, and he said I don't comment on other employees because technically he's still an employee of Vegas, because he was like how it's worded is he relieved of his duties, but he still gets paid, right? That's why they don't say fired in their press release, because he's relieved. Because how the coaching, I spoke to coach, how the coaching contract works is the contract states, I, Mike Rupp, am the head coach, and here's my responsibilities, right? Doon. I'm the head coach of the team. I'm not an assistant coach. I'm not the GM. I'm not the trainer. And it's very specific in what your details are. You know, like you got to be part of booking things and planning this and practice and all that stuff, right? So when you get let go, you're relieved of your duties. That's why they say it. For people wondering, you're relieved of your duties because you're still paid by the organization, not in that role. That's why usually you don't, because someone's like, well, maybe, he could go and be in like Kris Knoblauch. Maybe the Oilers were just going to hire Bruce Cassidy and Knoblauch could be the assistant. I'm like, it's not how it works, because Kris Knoblauch's contract he would have had to void his contract, which of course he never would, because you're not going to get paid as much. So if anybody wonders, that's how it works. And that's why they always say relieved of duties, but he is still technically an employee of that organization. And you do need to talk to that organization, get them to grant you permission to interview him.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. I'll just speak that they happened then off what you're saying, because I just felt like it was tough because, yes, of course, that's the wrong process, the wrong, dominoes to fall. It didn't go the way it should. Like, you should not be going and speaking to somebody else or trying to speak to somebody else until you make that fire. So, of course, if that's what happened, that's brutal. It's terrible. It's I just think that this is sports. No one's going to feel bad for anybody. I just think Kris Knoblauch did not deserve that. It's probably been an embarrassing week for him. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's taken this franchise somewhere where they haven't gone in a very, very long time. And he's a very good hockey coach. Now, does that mean that a change shouldn't have been made? I don't know. But it's just the way that it was handled seems just terrible. It's brutal. And now all of a sudden you're sitting here like, I think the next stage of this, because of, again, barring it being true that Vegas did not grant permission to speak to Bruce Cassidy. What if it's not Bruce Cassidy? I think Edmonton looks even worse now. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
they're basically committed to Bruce Cassidy.
Yeah. I mean, so like, I don't know where this goes, what it is. It's a bad week because with all the things up in the air, it's such a pivotal time for the franchise. With so many things that look like they were mismanaged. This kind of feels like the one that was probably pretty easy to manage. If you're going to reach out to another team, I don't care who leaked it. I don't care if it was Vegas or whomever leaked it. If you're going to reach out and speak to someone else to coach your hockey club, and take care of the order of business and fire or relieve your current coach of his duties. And that didn't happen. Like, it's a bad taste. It just adds to the chaos that's going on here at Edmonton.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article afterwards because people are like, oh, this happens all the time. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Not in the offseason. No. In the regular season, it's different. But I went through all 32 teams and how they hired and fired their current coaches. And everyone in the offseason, there was only one team in the offseason who had clearly spoken to another coach before they hired a new one. And that was Nashville. When they hired Andrew Burnett and they let John Hines go. And the only difference there was Barry Trotz had taken over as the new GM. And the new GMs, they always like to hire their own guys, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the only one. Every other team, Rupper, usually you would fire your coach within 2 to 11 days after the end of the regular season. And then the next coach was hired. The only one who hired a coach within a week was the Buffalo Sabres and Lindy Ruff. It's the only one. Every other one was sometimes as long as 6 weeks from the time they fired their coach in the offseason. Regular season's different, but even in the regular season, of the 32 organizations, 10 of them who fired their coach, they had an interim head coach who was either an assistant coach who got promoted or your AHL coach. The only ones who came from outside the organization were Rick Bowness from Columbus recently and Marty St. Louis. And those are the only 2 out of the 10 who had the interim tag taken off and became the full-time head coach. The other guys who had the interim tags, Rupper, they were just holding the seat until they did a proper hiring process in the offseason. So it wasn't normal. Now it's done. We'll wait until Vegas grants them permission. But you talk about that organization. Like, I'll say this. I don't care if it's Bruce Cassidy, if it was Mike Rupp. Hell, if it was Jason Gregor, I can take my U13 coaching skills. The first 20 games of next season will be very easy for the new head coach of Edmonton. You're going to have a team that Edmonton's still a good team. Like, it's not like their roster is terrible, right? They're a playoff roster, no question. Some would argue still probably a cup contender with 97-29 and 2. They're going to have a team that's rested for the first time in 3 years. None of their players are requiring off-season surgery, so they'll all be able to train properly. They're going to be motivated because they finally admitted that, hey, maybe we didn't respect the regular season as much as we needed to. We've got to build some foundation pieces in it. And the most important one is, hey, you're the new coach. And what happens with the new coach? Well, everybody wants to impress the new coach. So it's, when they have success, it's not to discredit Bruce Cassidy, but he's coming into a good situation early on. My question will be, Rupper, that if you talk about the identity of the Oilers on the ice, the one identity flaw that they have had is they can't commit consistently to playing good defensive hockey. They've done it for stretches. Yeah. We saw it last year against, Dallas and Vegas. They didn't give up very much. They had 3 shutouts. They've had other stretches of good defensive play. But last year, they won 3 games twice. And one of those 3-game winning streaks came in the last 8 games of the year, right? Like they are 10 games, whatever it was. They never found any consistency. And the thing that annoyed me was at the end of the season, they're like, yeah, you know what? Not winning 3 in a row was a problem. Yet during the regular season, they were like, it doesn't matter. You know what? As long as you win, who cares about 3 in a row? And I'm like, garbage. You want to get on consistency to show you how to win. Because in the playoffs, no Stanley Cup winner, fun fact, in the last 40 years, Rupper, has ever won the Cup without at least a winning streak of 4 or more games. So just a little news flash on that one. So I look at the Oilers. Are they... There is death by 1,000 cuts, and there's little signs. Dysfunction creeps in softly, right? It's one move here, one move there. They got to stop it because they're on a wheel of firing the coach every few years, not doing things the right way, making some bad trades, making, I think, some emotional overreactions, having coach out. Now we got to bring the coach back in. You don't get to decide who your coaching staff is. Like lots of little things that add up. How concerned are you that as key of summer this is for Edmonton is that they got to quiet the noise internally in their organization?
So I'm a great way of phrasing that for what I'm about to say, because I found listening to Stan Bowman's presser, this is all part of it. Like whether you want to say, well, sometimes we just get what we expect people to say in hockey, right? Like, this is on me. This is whatever. Sometimes we don't even get that. And I didn't feel like we got enough of that from management where, I mean, if we really wanted, we could spend the next 3 hours kind of picking apart. They made some good moves. There has been some good moves. Todd Colson was a good move. I think if, like you mentioned before, if they're able to extend like a Murphy, like that's a good move. Like there's been a boatload of really bad moves. And I feel like every year it's always trying to justify that this is a good roster when we're seeing things on the ice that have slipped. Now, is that between the ears? Is that a lost message from a coach? I don't know. I'm not inside that room. But I will say this, like we saw Connor and Leon say some things that they let their game slip defensively. So whether you want to say that was just leaders just spewing the whatever, if they really believe that, we will see. We will see how they play next season, but they said it at least. And I guess my point is looking at the roster, do they need to defend better? Absolutely. Is that a coach X's and O's? I don't know, man. Possibly, but they also defended pretty good under Kris Knoblauch at different times. So I sit there and I look at the personnel. They have, and we've talked about it, some specialty players that they had to let go because they couldn't afford. And I get that. but you have to replace them with players. Like I'm looking at the roster right now, and it's not to poo-poo these players, because these players, like Kasperi Kapanen, was really good for this team in the playoffs. Kasperi Kapanen has gone an entire career. I don't think the phrase defensive play has ever really come up as describing his game. So you go and you look at some of the other players on this. Jack Roslovic. Jack Roslovic he's a very streaky point getter. We saw when he first came to the team, really good talent, but they always lacked the other side of the puck. So my point is in all this is like, so if Connor and Leon's game slipped in that department, and then you've lost some personnel and you brought some in that aren't necessarily defensive players or what known to be that, then why should we be surprised that they stink defensively? You know what I mean? And you can't put that on a coach. You can't, it's the personnel has slipped. Does that mean every single move has been bad? No. But it bothers me from the standpoint when you're watching the presser. It's equivalent to me where sometimes you see coaches in this business, maybe they're frustrated. Maybe it's after a regular season game. Maybe it's after the playoff a game. And you'll see them in their media scrum at times say, well, we had a game plan and we didn't stick to it. And as a player, I hated that. And he might be right. But that's basically saying we did our job. We're all set. And that's the vibes I'm getting from the management of Edmonton. And if I'm a player, I'm like, hang on a second. The coach took the fall here. We came out and we said this. We can't even get even if it's BS, just hey, we've got to make better decisions here as a front office. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard that. I haven't seen that. I think that just adds to the internal turmoil for this organization.
Yeah, he just for clarity, he did have one comment that says, quote, I think we management are part to blame where we're at today. When a team doesn't have success, it isn't just the players or just a coach or just a management. It shows you all parts, and that's the case here. There is blame on many, including myself, is what Bowman said. Okay. So he did take some, but he added in the other pieces. It wasn't just, hey, I got to be better. As for Kapanen, it's funny, Rupper. I think Kapanen's been an unreal signing for them. He's killing penalties. He's finally... This guy's a first-round pick, and I've talked to Kasperi, and he admitted he battled with consistency. And it was really, for him, it was kind of the wake-up call was last year when he was healthy, scratched to start the playoffs. Then when he got in, he was a one-man wrecking crew. And all year long, he was a plus player, goals for, goals against, 5-on-5, killed penalties in the playoffs. When he was on the ice, Oilers outscored the Ducks 8-1 in the playoffs. So actually, he's improved. What happened was the guys who have the puck the most, they turned over the puck too much. Edmonton didn't manage the puck in the offensive zone, and they'd make some defensive reads that were mind-blowing to me. The whole team at times, like they would just bad giveaways. And to me, it comes down to, I think it's the players, a lot of it, right? At the end of the day, you played, right? Your coach can have the best system in the world, Rupper. But if you don't buy into it and you don't, hey, I got to be here. This is how we want to do it. When I'm 2 feet from the blue line, I'm not trying to sauce pass up the middle because Rupper is open, but if I miss it, it's a 2-on-1 the other way. I'm putting it off the boards because now I know for sure it's not. And I think Edmonton, I know that their identity is offensive and I get it, but there's got to be a better commitment to the player. And I will say there was one player that texted me and I found it interesting. And we were talking, he just said, he goes, I think we're panicking. And that was because it's funny because I wrote the article 3 days after the season ended. I was like, the Oilers shouldn't panic. This team isn't that. Everybody was like, oh my God, they're so far away. I'm like, what the organization erred in, and I've never understood it, is why not just list your guys who had significant injuries? It doesn't mean that's why you lost, but it's a legitimate reason. McDavid, Draisaitl, Dickinson, Henrique, Hyman, Ekholm, Bouchard. Oh, Ekholm wasn't that bad. Jake Wallman had an injury, but he played fairly well. They had quite a few key guys hurt, right? That's just the reality of it. That's not an excuse because they weren't hurt during the regular season when they couldn't win 3 in a row to save their damn life, right? Like they were the last team in the league to do it. So that's not why they sucked in the regular season. But I think the organization's at a tipping point here. And the other thing is there's lots of pressure to win. But I don't buy that there's more pressure in Edmonton to win than there is in Montreal or there is in Boston or there is in Tampa Bay. All these top teams want to win, right? When you were on a contending team, Rupper, I don't think you wanted to win more than the other contending teams. But I think in Edmonton at times, that focus of winning the cup becomes the old focus and they got blinders on and they don't see the process and the steps needed to get there. They just, if we win a game, okay, we're closer. If we lose a game, oh my God, it's like they're too emotionally imbalanced. And I don't know how to change that. I honestly don't. I'm not in the organization, but that I think is a concern for them. And obviously there's the Connor McDavid contract. But 2 years is a long rubber. That's basically the shelf life of a coach. 2 years. Like, it's a long time in today's NHL in a weird way.
Yeah, it is. I think the one thing that people, and I don't know, and not trying to guess where this goes, but I mean, is it 2 years? It might be less than 2 years. If it's right. Not getting done, then you're going to have to make a decision here and try to figure out how you do this. I think the pressure's big on any Canadian markets. I feel like a little bit bigger than most in America, but in the USA, but kind of in Edmonton feels a little different though, because of that Connor thing though. I don't know, because it just feels like that storyline is what everyone's talking about. I mean, you got people saying, "Oh, where's he going to go? What's it?" I think that puts pressure on. It's every year kind of feels like do or die for a team that when you're considered a contender, but it seems even more so with them and the future of Connor and this franchise. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot, but I guess my point in all this is like, I don't know. I just get hung up on the fact that I think when you have teams that have players that you could just chuck over the board in a game situation, and they know how to manage a game, they know what's appropriate right now on the time of the clock, yes, what the score is of the game. Those guys are invaluable in this league because they have always had quite a bit of value. But I feel like it's getting like that more and more. This league's never been more skilled than it is now, but has never had less game managers. So when you have some of those guys that can do that, like the Connor Brown, and I don't want to keep going back to that because they could not afford him. But my point is, there was a reason why this team had success, because they had at times game managers. And I feel like these things are falling upon players who are not necessarily game managers, or they don't think that way. They don't play that way. And it's like you're trying to force players into this role that they just aren't accustomed to playing. And to me, that's management. So is it the answer? Let me clean that up. The answer to everything is not scoring the next goal. That is a problem in this league. There's so many players, depth players, third and fourth line players, where the answer to everything is not let's go get a goal. And teams that know that, understand that, figure it out, and play that way, those are the teams that are built to go on a long playoff run. And I feel like Edmonton's lacking in those areas. So is that coach driven? Maybe. Is it player execution? Absolutely. But I also think it's player personnel driven, and that's something that I think they lack.
100%. I think that that's where I said the big summer here is on management to make some good moves. You can't have another Tristan Jarry, Stu Skinner, Brett Kulak trade. Like, that was a terrible trade for them, no question. A few other teams, you look at Minnesota's offseason. I don't think they have to make major changes. You know what? Lots of their core is intact. I think, getting healthy is what they'll look at. They'll probably want, I think, maybe, a little bit more speed, maybe in their bottom six, fourth line, a little bit. But overall, I like the makeup of their team. The Anaheim Ducks, kind of similar boat, right? Those are the two teams recently since we've talked about. Or anything on either one of those teams that stands out that you think significant, or is this just, overall a fairly positive year for both franchises?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was overall very, very important for both, or great year for both franchises. I'll say this in Minnesota. I think, I don't know where you were at on them. I did not consider the Minnesota Wild. I've really liked their team. I did not consider them a contender prior this year. And
prior to this.
So, okay. Yeah. Prior to the Quinn Hughes trade. So they were always a really good team, really good foundation. I think that this roster, they've gotten more out of this roster than I think a lot of people would. So that tells you it's a great build, it's a great coach team, and you got to give credit to the players as well. But now all of a sudden, after that Quinn Hughes move, I think that puts them in contender status for me now. Now, have we seen a significant difference between them and Colorado? Yeah. And it's pretty decent still. But for where it once was, I didn't think it was very close. Now, did that mean Minnesota can never beat Colorado in a game? No. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. But I think when you talked about those three teams in the Central, probably went Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota. Now I think you got an argument who's number 2 in that division. And they obviously played pretty well against Dallas. I still think Dallas is a very elite team. But so I guess in all of that, can they keep that status? And that's going to be centering around Quinn Hughes. I think he extends there. That's me. I think he extends there, whether it's that 3-year deal everyone's talking about. They would align him with Jack, his expiration of his contract in New Jersey. I think he stays there. They've got a lot of decisions. They've got some UFAs. They don't have a ton of room. And I think the biggest thing here, they don't have a ton of cap room. The biggest thing here is I think Bill Guerin, the biggest thing that I think he saw in the playoffs here is they're still lacking that center. That centerman that they tried to get at the deadline. The market was insane what they were asking. At least that's what everybody's saying is the asking price was very high for center ice. I think that they go and get that this summer. And what does that mean? I don't know who's out. So, that's the biggest thing. Quinn Hughes signing and going getting that centerman. That might have to be parting with one of those goalies now. And the easiest one to part with, as far as no movement clauses that Gustafsson has, is Wallstedt. That's the one I don't think you really want to part from. So that it'll be interesting. But I really like this team where they took these steps. The other one was just be the McCarron. I want to throw that one out there because I think he was an awesome fit for them. When you go to the Anaheim Ducks, this I don't know. I hate to use the playing with house money thing because as a team, like you're not like there's no way that Anaheim's waking up today and they're like, "Well, we did a good job this year. Like we're happy with it." No, you're pissed. Like you wanted to continue this thing. And you have belief in your hockey club, but man, this team's in a really good spot moving forward. I mean, you've got Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson. Both these guys going to be, they're RFA. They're going to be getting new contracts, but they got this experience under them right now. They've got some money potentially coming off the books with the older defensemen. You got John Carlson, you were Radko Gudas, Jacob Trouba. Like there's going to be decisions made there. I just think they're in a really, really good spot moving forward. I think this Anaheim team is on the way of being maybe not next year, maybe it takes 2-3 years still, but I think they're going to be an elite team in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I like Jackson Lacombe. I really like Beckett Seneca as well. Like they got a really good young base of players. Dostal's a young goalie. They got other guys coming. It's good. Interesting about Minnesota is, you look at their guys who are free agents and they're older. Tarasenko, Nick Foligno, Zuccarello, 34, 38, and 38 years of age. Like those guys are all making 4 sheets this year. So they got some money. I know Foligno obviously wasn't, you look at salary and everything and they took him late in the year. So it's not like they paid him $4 million all year, but that's still what his cap is. And so they've got like a fair amount of money to spend, and Hughes is entering the final year of his deal. Bill Guerin is one of the most aggressive GMs in the NHL. I'm fascinated. You said trade the goalie. I'll be interested to see if they do it there, or do they wait and say, hey, we can wait until Wallstedt has to get his extension before we necessarily have to do it. Because there's not a lot of free agent centers. Charlie Coyle just signed. There's not a ton of them out there. So it's probably better maybe for a trade. We'll see. But Anaheim's got to improve their defense core. I think overall, like I like their top pair, but their second and third pair, they're probably looking and say, okay, can we improve there? Like, is John Carlson going to stay? That to me is probably the biggest decision for them. Yeah. Veteran guy, moves the puck well, is kind of fitted for today's NHL. Still a really good player. So if they can't keep him, then they're going to be looking, and that's going to be a problem. So I think John Carlson's probably priority number 1 for them. I know the young guys got to sign. I don't think there's any worry about them retaining their young players. I got boatloads of cap space to do it. But John Carlson to me is the big question mark for them, and how they can they convince him to come back for a two-year deal potentially, and they'd still like to add. And I think Minnesota, just how much they played Hughes in the playoffs, and I know that Brodin was hurt, so that's a factor, but I think they got to get 6 defensemen that they trust, right? Or maybe 7. So you're not playing Quinn Hughes 34 minutes in the playoffs. I'm sorry. He's just, you look at, I think that's part of maybe the mental error late in that game when you're playing that many minutes. So especially as a smaller guy, I don't think that's sustainable long-term. So I would look to say, if I'm Minnesota and I'm Bill Guerin, Brodin obviously comes back, but I need to add 2 other defensemen that I'm comfortable. If we have an injury to our top 6, our 7 can come in and play more than 6 or 5 minutes a night.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Brodin one was massive in that department, but I don't see, even if you're able to do that, I really don't see Quinn Hughes's minutes coming back all that much. It's just, I think when you got Hughes, Faber, now do you run into moments when maybe that bites you? Is it too much? Is it sustainable long term? I mean, all those things are very fair, but I also think that's the best pair in the National Hockey League. So you're going to lean in on those guys quite a bit. I mean, you could say the same thing with, you can sit there and say, hey, Connor and Leon, we need to bring their minutes back a little bit more. Like, at the end of the day, like, you're gonna lean into those guys. That's what the team is, and I don't think Hughes and Faber get fatigued really. So they can clean up. I think the bigger thing is they had a lot of older players, and they were a really dinged up team. So it's like, when you get in those moments, how do you find someone that you can trust that's still young? I think that's all kind of part of it too. But I would expect this. I would expect something big out of Bill Guerin this summer. I think he's probably, waking up the last couple mornings here, and he's probably looking at it like, I did everything I could at the deadline, but we got to get a center iceman. We've got to have that in place, because that's what's separating them from a top end team like Colorado.
We're going to get to the East, wrap it up, but first we're going to get to Pat Puff. Patty, welcome back to the pod, buddy. How you doing?
Well, happy to be back. I'm doing great. We've got Fill in the Blank today, brought to you by Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up by 3 or basketball by 15, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play it responsibly. I feel like I have a couple hard questions for you guys, so I'll end the last one a little bit easier. The team set up best to win the summer, in air quotes, considering both cap space and the management to pull it off, is blank, Greg's.
It's which management is going to be the one who doesn't make the bad mistakes, because winning the summer usually doesn't mean you won the summer. It just means you made some of the bigger splashes, and lots of times it doesn't work out. So I'm going to say teams that the majority of their roster is set, so they can tweak around the edges. Colorado, no brainer. I think Minnesota is set up well. They're not going to have to make a desperation move, but they've got a really good core, lots of good defensemen, lots of good forwards, depth in goal. That they are set up. So I like the Wild, and I'm going to say the Wild because Bill Guerin is historically not afraid to make a move. And I love, Rupper, what you said about McCarron. I'll be stunned if he doesn't re-sign him. I think he played great there. He's a UFA that, he's not going to command a huge amount of money, but he fits how they play, and he played very well. So I'm going to go with the Minnesota Wild are shaped up to have a very good summer.
I like that. I don't know, man. I think Minnesota's a good one. I'm going to go with San Jose. I think San Jose is a very interesting one. Their decor has potential of looking completely different, and I don't think they got so many UFAs on the D side. Like, I don't think all those guys are not back. You can't bring in 5 new players on the back end or whatever. So I think that they're going to have cap space. They have some flexibility, but I think they've got the hunger from what they saw this year of their team to do something pretty significant. Now, you mentioned this not a ton there in the UFA market. So maybe it's a trade. Maybe this is where Mike Grier gets really, creative. And it'll be interesting to see what he could do, because this is a team that you can't just sit here and be like, oh, this is part of the process and we're going to run it back here and just hope that everyone continues to develop. Like, they leaned really, really heavily on Macklin Celebrini. And so I think now you got to sit there and think, our goal is to make the playoffs this next year. They've got a ton of assets, ton of young players. They were in all the way to the end on that Artemi Panarin. I keep bringing that up. They were pretty hungry and trying to get Panarin in there. So I think there's this appetite to do something big. So I'm interested to see what they do there because they've got some holes to fill on this roster. But I think that they see that they've got a bright future.
Yeah, I really like that pick. I mean, there's a lot of young players on that team too that you're probably expecting to take a little bit of a step next year, plus that second overall pick. So they could easily have a really good summer. Second question I have for you guys, the goalie that has impressed you the most this postseason, keeping in mind strength of schedule and whatnot, is blank. Rob.
This past season, which goalie surprised me the most? Oh, man.
Playoffs.
Oh, in the playoffs. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, the easiest one for me to say, and this is not saying that I wasn't expecting him to be good, Freddie Anderson, I think just because he's been that dominant in the way that things have kind of gone. I'm going to say Dobish. It's got to be Dobish. I don't understand. Like, this is a player, like, I understand that he was talking about, and I'm not saying this in a, making fun of him kind of way. Like, he had that emotional thing that happened earlier in the season. And quite frankly, like that's a tough position to have when you're going to go up and down like that with your emotions. And he's kind of answered that, said he's just very emotional. And we've seen the other side of his emotions where it's really positive in some ways. So, but that's a position that you kind of have always seen just being, straight across and pretty horizontal. And I didn't, the pressures of playing in Montreal and the pressures of down the stretch in the playoffs, he's been fantastic. Down the stretch, the playoffs, the way he's managed, and even when a bad goal goes in, bounces right back. I love what I'm seeing from him. So that was the biggest surprise, because it was almost like I was waiting, I don't want to see it, but I was waiting, like, how is he going to manage something bad happening? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. If you're going to be playing in the playoffs long enough, you're going to have bad moments, bad goals against. And I thought he's handled it really, really well.
It's a good answer, Rob. I'm actually going to go with Freddie Anderson, because he's been unbelievable and he's been available in every game. I don't think any of us have ever questioned Freddie Anderson's ability. It was his availability. And, I kind of joked. I'm like, well, so all Carolina had to do was sweep every series, and then he gets a week break in between. Like, God, I can't believe they didn't do this sooner. Like, obviously being facetious here, but he's been remarkable. Like, you look at, and he hasn't had a bad game. I don't think he's had a bad period. Right. I'm not sure he's had like a bad goal. He has been locked in for the Hurricanes. So I'll go with Freddie.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I mean, his contract's up, but also when we get later into the playoffs and they play a better team, like some adversity, it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes for him and the Carolina Hurricanes in general. But the last question I have for you, and I think this is an easy one, but Colorado should start blank in the Western Conference Final, and the Sabres should start blank in Game 6. Greg's.
Ooh, the Buffalo one is interesting. They've kind of gone back and forth. You heard Lindy Ruff, like, definitely, the first few goals UPL had no chance on. I'm gonna say Lion, because I just think that overall his numbers have been better. He's played more, so I'm gonna go with Alex Lyon. For Colorado, I think it's a tough decision, because funny enough, both guys have been pulled in that series recently, right? And both of them allowing 3 goals on 9 shots, 3 goals on 10 shots. The last time it was Wedgwood earlier, and then of course it was Blackwood in Game 5, and they come back and they win. So I can understand why I say, well, let's go to Wedgwood now again. But I think Blackwood's their guy all year long. So even though Wedgwood I know has played more in the playoffs, I'm gonna maybe go off the board here, and I'll say Blackwood.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna agree with Alex Lyon, because he's been better. But I'm gonna go Scott Wedgwood. I don't know. I just think Scott Wedgwood is
fair.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. All these over the last week and a half, all these goalie switches that teams have done, I've questioned a lot of them, and they all seem to work out. So these guys have a good pulse on what's going on and with their goaltenders and what moves they need to make. But I just think Scott Wedgwood is going to give you the best baseline You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't think you're in a position right now where you have to just be good. Which one of those goalies do you feel comfortable being just good? And for me, that's who Scott Wedgwood is. That's who he is in his career. He's not going to have the peaks of a Blackwood, but he's going to be more consistently just good. And that's what they need right now.
I got to be honest, I'm a little surprised. I mean, for me, it's Lyon, no question. And I think I continue with Wedgwood. Just the numbers are there, the consistency, and he's going to get some time to rest. They don't play till Wednesday, game 1. So that's who I'd pick. I thought that was going to be a unanimous response. So I'm a little surprised. I'd be curious to see what the YouTube chat says and all the comments and whatnot. So let us know. But that's all I have for Fill in the Blank, brought to you by Bet365.
There you go. That was a good question. The Colorado one, like, and it is wild. It just shows you, man, like having 2 goalies now, Rupper can, Buffalo's used 2, Minnesota's used 2, Colorado's used 2. Now Carolina obviously has only used 1. Vegas has only used 1. So all I'm saying is there's no right way anymore. It used to be like you had to just ride with your guy come hell or high water. And somehow if your goalie got pulled in the playoffs, it somehow means your goalies aren't any good. Well, Wedgwood and Blackwood have both been pretty good this year for Colorado, and both of them got pulled in a span of 4 days, for goodness sake. So, all right, on the 9th and the 13th. So, or 4 to 5 days, whatever it was. But it will be interesting to see where they go. That maybe both will play again. We'll see. And that leads us to that Buffalo Montreal. Like, Montreal, big game in game 5. Like, it's odd for Buffalo that they beat a much better road team here in the playoffs. So that's why I know they're going into Montreal, but they're probably pretty confident, right? Like they're 4-1 on the road. They've won in tough buildings in Boston and Montreal, loud crowds, pretty intimidating places. So they've been good there. Any reason why you think the Sabres have struggled at home compared to on the road so much in the playoffs?
No, I mean, I don't know why that stands to be a bit of an issue on home ice. I just think that, but Buffalo for me lost some sort of edge along the way here. Maybe I don't want to say run out of gas. Everyone's tired right now. I just think that how elite and how good Buffalo has been playing for like the 60 regular season games, and then you add in all these playoff games, just the edge has dropped a little bit. They just kind of the big boys haven't been big enough, and literally and figuratively. I just got the advantages that this team I think should have hasn't really been there, and that advantage is size. And I think Montreal has been the team that's played with more aggression and gotten to the better ice out there. So they've got an uphill battle. And like you mentioned, if they're able to go with the Bell Center on Saturday in that hostile environment, which you just mentioned, they're pretty comfortable in these playoffs. If they can get that win, I think it's going to be really tough to beat Montreal twice. And you're going to have much better. It's going to come on the shoulders of whatever goaltender you're talking about. It's going to have to be fantastic. And you're going to have, like, at the end of the day, fact of the matter is, Alex Tuch and Tage Thompson got to be better. Like, they've got to be better. They are the studs of that team. And you can watch all day long. I can watch Josh Doan, Josh Norris, Zach Benson. I mean, they're fun to watch. They've got a lot of pieces that are really great. But to win in the playoffs, you have to have a moment in a series where your big dogs are your big dogs. And I don't think Buffalo wins this unless those guys are elite in these last 2 games.
Yeah, no, that's fair, man. I think that, those top guys, what's interesting is both penalty kills are like 72% in this series. Yeah. Power plays are dominating. Like just way too many high sticks, Rupper. Like just so kind of carelessness with your stick here in this series so far. And so it might just come down to which team's more disciplined. Can you stay out of the box? Because right now, neither team can kill a penalty at 72% for both of them. So that's kind of like, I think Buffalo, you got to find a way to stay more disciplined. And when you score 3 goals in the first 10 minutes at home, and then you don't get any in the next 50, like I kind of agree with you. It looks like, maybe a little bit tired. We'll see. Montreal, Cole Caulfield finally scored 5-on-5. That's a huge thing for them in game 5. They're coming home. And so I guess we'll leave you with it because we know by the next time we talk, we'll be in the Eastern Conference Final. Do either one of these teams have a chance against Carolina? And if so, which one do you think has a better chance and why?
I mean, I don't believe they do. I just think Carolina, and I don't want to discredit these teams for not having a ton of playoff experience. As far as, people are going to go back to saying, oh, well, Montreal was in the finals of the bubble, and hold on, like every team's different from year to year. Together collectively, I just think that this is a team that's still trying to figure some things out here. And Buffalo, I think we're starting to see their greenness in all of this too. So I'd say Montreal, I think, would give them the better of the run, because I think it feels like this is kind of their time in a lot of ways. But I just think Carolina is too good. I really do.
Yeah, I had Taylor Hall on my show on Thursday for a long interview. Hurricanes fans, I definitely recommend you check it out. He's very open and honest about lots of different things. He's obviously playing great hockey right now. That line of Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven and Taylor Hall are just carrying the Hurricanes. Like, they've been unreal, that trio. And Hall has 12 points, and Stankoven has 7 goals, and Blake has, I think, 10 or 11 points. Like, they've been very good. Hall had some very interesting things to say about Jacob Slavin, and just how he thinks he's the most unique player in the NHL, and just how good he is defending. And to be an elite defender, you have to think at the level of the elite offensive guys and react to it, which is very hard to do. And you know what? They've had a break. The break didn't hurt them at all. Remember, they shut out Flyers in game 1 after a week-long break. Teams have had week-long breaks before. I think it's a big benefit. Freddie Anderson's going to be sharp. They're going to be rested. Rod has them ready. Rod Brindamore, that is. So I think it's going to be tough for either team. And if you're Carolina, you're probably like, you know what? Let's just see Buffalo win game 6, just so they have to go to game 7 Monday, and then probably start right away on Wednesday. Because usually if you go to game 7, you don't get 2 days off. It's usually 1 historically, right? You want to get going. So unless there's some building availability issues in Carolina that they can't start on Wednesday, but it would seem to make sense to me that happens. But I look at Carolina right now, and they're undefeated, and Svechnikov, Aho, and Jarvis have just been okay, right? Like, they haven't been bad, but they haven't dominated. And I just think they're too skilled as a trio to eventually not have 1 or 2 big games. And that's why I just think they're going to be too hard. That second line, or really it's playing like their first line right now, it looks unstoppable. And I look at the Hurricanes, and I don't give Montreal or Buffalo much of a chance, unfortunately. It'd be great for them to get there, but for the first time in a long time, the Hurricanes are going to do well against an Atlantic team in the Eastern Conference Final.
They've given up 10 goals in 8 games. 10. You know what I mean? Like, and you could say whatever you want to say about who their opponent has been. That's impressive. And to the point that we just talked about Freddie Anderson, you just talked about Jacob Slavin, which is hilarious, because I think we've kind of talked about it, where I think there needs to be a best defensive defenseman award. And if there was, for the last however many years, he would have won it every single year. You would have been like the Patrice Bergeron of the Selke. So that's something that you have in your favor. All the players play the right way under Rod, but then you also have, like, Jordan Staal is a man on a mission right now. And I played with Stalzy when he was a kid in this league with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And what he's evolved into, he's always been really impressive, but defensively, he's big. He's mean now. I think he's understanding, like, he could be a bully out there. And so they've got those things where no matter what's happening in the game, you throw those guys over the board and say, get a job done. They're most likely going to do that.
Well, Taylor Hall actually talked about the fact that, last year Florida taught them as a team. He goes, when we played Florida, I knew every guy wasn't just skating by me. Like, he was hitting me, right? And with an intent. He goes, not that you try to hurt them, but if they get hurt, you're okay with it. That is kind of his words. Yeah. And I've watched Carolina this year. They're leading the NHL. They've taken the most penalties. Now, you kind of joke, they've taken, I think, 3 or 4 too many men penalties and 3 or 4 over the glass penalties. So it's not, but they've still taken a lot of penalties in the playoffs this year. And you've seen Hall delivered some huge hits on the borderline. They're not suspended, but they're hard hits. And I see Carolina, I think they felt like Florida pushed them around a little bit, and they're done with that. And that's a team pack mentality. They don't have a grossly tough team filled with fighters, but they're playing hard. And that's why I think it's going to be a tough out for anybody, either Buffalo or Montreal. But hey, man, I love game 7. So I'd kind of hope for Buffalo to push it to a game 7 just because there's something about it. But Saturday night in Montreal for game 6 is going to be a hell of a game. So enjoy that one. It's going to be the only game of the weekend, it looks like right now. And then we'll get to the East and West Conference Finals next week. And then we can start talking about some offseason other moves, some additions. We'll get into the Canucks next week with you. Rupper, we didn't talk about the Sedins because I wanted to spend more time on them. So we're going to get into the Sedins and what they've done in Vancouver. And why I actually really like that decision. The one thing those guys emulate is class. And I think they know about, how important it is to engage in the community, not just on the ice. I think that's something that organization really needs. And the organization has a plan. Like they're going in a rebuild. They know they're in a rebuild. Yeah. And I think that's going to be good. And we will kind of a tease for a week from now. We're going to talk about the future of Elias Pettersson and what and where that future could be. So we'll get to all of that next Friday here on the Rundown. Rupper, have yourself a great weekend. The Rundown is always brought to you by Bet365.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.